Hola, hola, hola. ¿Qué pasa a todos? Bienvenidos al canal. Y para mis suscriptores, bienvenidos de nuevo. Hoy hacemos algo un poco diferente porque miramos algunos memes en español de Facebook y hablaremos de lo que podemos aprender. Me llaman Austin de la calle, pero como somos amigos, me puedes llamar Austin, or Austin Teaches Spanish. I'm excited to be doing something a little bit different for you guys today. You might remember, if you've seen my video on the fastest path to Spanish fluency, that one of the things that I recommended is using your phone to learn Spanish by changing your language settings into Español. Now, this is something that is not just going to teach you Spanish from navigating around your phone settings and seeing all the different words that are in the menus of the UI, but it's going to carry over into all of your apps. So you're going to start getting Facebook memes, Instagram posts, TikTok videos, and all of that in Spanish too. And I gotta say, laughing at memes in two languages is so much more fun than just the one. Now don't forget, I need your help. That means you on the other side of the screen, right there, I'm talking to you. I need your help in deciding on content for future immersion exercises. There's all kinds of fun stuff out there in the Spanish-speaking world, and it's just waiting to be discovered. There's always something to learn, and I want to share what interests you, yes, you, with everybody in the audience, and talk about what we can learn from it. So go to my post on the community tab, comment with your suggestions, and like whatever comments you see that have been posted by others. Whoever gets the top 5 most likes out of at least 25 suggestions is going to have their suggestion featured in a coming immersion exercise, and you're going to win a free copy of my conjugation spreadsheet, which is going to be your best friend for learning new verbs when we do these immersion exercises. You'll know what the verb is, and you'll know exactly what tense it's being used in, and you'll better understand why with that conjugation booklet in hand. So go check it out, leave your comment, and let me know what you think. So let's get started. I want to start by looking at something that's more on the motivational side before we get into some of the more funny stuff. So the first one we've got says, El maestro fue alumno, el experto fue ignorante, el valiente fue miedoso, el líder fue seguidor. Todos somos un proceso. Pasad buen fin de semana. So this page, Spanish from the Roots, I started following them on Facebook a while back. They're from Spain, so you might have noticed that from Pasad buen fin de semana, which you can probably already tell is a affirmative command towards Vosotros. If you're not already familiar with that, definitely go check out my video that I did on the imperative mood and doing commands, because I do talk about Vosotros in my entire conjugation series, so that's going to help a lot there. But I wanted to start with this just because it really reminds us that this is a process that we all go through, and it can be a long process. It may take us a while, but eventually we're going to get there as long as we stick to it. We all start off somewhere, and right now, wherever you're at in your language learning journey, the only important thing is that you just keep pushing forward and that you don't give up on yourself. I promise you're gonna get there. So let's move on to our next one. Now, I do apologize because unfortunately, a lot of these memes that I've got saved, I've had them for years, and I saved them to my phone really with no idea that I would be starting a YouTube channel at any point and sharing my love of the Spanish language. So as much as I would love to give credit to the original creators of all of the content that I'm sharing with you, some of these, I honestly have no idea who made them. If any of you guys happen to know and you want to post in the comments, please definitely do so. I would love to make sure that the original creators get their credit. But this next one here I want to show you guys is a pretty interesting one, and it talks a lot about just the bilingual brain and what it means to really know and understand 2 languages and use them effectively. So I just want to see if you guys are able to read this. I'll just kind of give you guys a second to look it over, see what you think. Okay, so were you able to read all that? If so, excelente! It's a great feeling, isn't it? Being able to understand language that you just decided that you were going to pick it up and learn because you wanted to. It's awesome. If you are still struggling a little bit, what if I go ahead and swap the 2 languages around? Like this. Okay, so now that we're feeling motivated, let's go ahead and move into some of the funny ones that I found. So let's start with this one, which is actually from the movie Shrek. If you guys haven't seen the Spanish translation for Shrek yet, go check it out. I'm sure I'm going to do an immersion exercise on it at some point, but it is really good. It's hilarious. Probably better than the original, honestly. So this one says, ¿Cuándo te ascienden en el jale? Pero con el mismo sueldo. I feel like that's something that happens a lot, especially nowadays. Getting a promotion, but not getting a raise to go with it. So the only thing I really want to talk about here is that word jale. That is a colloquial word. It's really specific, especially to the region in Mexico. There's another colloquial word for job, which is chamba, which is also pretty specific to Mexico, but it's also a lot more common throughout a lot of Central America. So this is something that, like I talk about a lot, regional usages for different words, and just keeping in mind what native Spanish speakers actually say. Yeah, the word trabajo works just fine. We could say that, but jale or chamba, you're going to hear a lot more people talking about that generally. Okay, so while we're actually talking about that word chamba, here's another good example for you. Hago tan bien mi chamba que yo felicito al patrón por haberme contratado. So, again, this is what people really say when they're talking about their job a lot of times. Yeah, you can say trabajo, but if you really want to sound native, throw in a chamba or throw in a jale. Throw in something that's just more colloquial. It's going to really just boost your fluency greatly. Okay, so I got one more that's related to work for you before we move on to some other stuff. So this one says, Mi jefe, ni teniendo moto llegas temprano. Yo la compré para levantarme más tarde, no para llegar temprano. So really what I want to talk about here is that teniendo. So that is the progressive aspect. That's the verb tener, to have, being used with the progressive aspect. So here the boss is saying, ni teniendo moto llegas temprano. So he's saying, even having a motorcycle, you don't arrive early. So you can use the progressive aspect on verbs by themselves without having to use an accompanying verb like estar or ir or seguir or whatever. But it really needs to be used specifically to kind of contextualize what's going on, to contextualize another action, or to kind of describe a scenario. You'll kind of get the hang of it with practice. The other thing I really just want to talk about here is that pa levantarme and pa llegar. Like I mentioned in my video on por and para, the word pa is really used a lot in place of para. It's just quicker, it's easier. So whenever you see those two letters pa, that's just the word para, but it's a shorthand. One other thing real quick before we move on is that word compre. In this scenario, the guy's misspelling it. It's a colloquial usage. It looks like it's the word compre, as in the subjunctive usage of comprar. But you can tell from the context here, he's saying, I bought it. He's saying, compré. So, like I mentioned in a previous immersion exercise, a lot of times Spanish speakers, when they're typing out or they're writing, they'll oftentimes just drop the accent marks off of words because it's obvious from the context when they're using one verb tense versus a different one. So here it's obvious he's saying compré. It's obvious that he's using the preterite and not the present subjunctive. Profe Austin especially is going to kick my butt if I don't mention that you need to make sure as you're learning, include those accent marks. Just make sure that you are on the right track to using these words properly, because it can get a bit complicated. So if you drop off that accent mark just because you see other people doing it, that's a quick way to get yourself confused later on. So just while we're learning, just make sure we use the accent marks where they're appropriate, okay? Alright guys, well I got a whole bunch more of these, but I'm just going to do one last one, and then I'm going to let Profe Austin get to work on getting his next lesson ready on cognate tricks. So this one is actually a reference to one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, The Dark Knight. If you happen to remember the scene where the Joker breaks in and he's recruiting the guys and he basically makes them fight each other because there's only one slot available to join his little team. This is a reference to that, so let's take a look. Okay, so this last one is, Lo siento chicos, solo tengo una butaca para zurdos. Que sea rápido. Okay, so the word there, butaca, it generally means armchair. In this context, it's talking about the kind of desk that they have at the school, where it's the seat that has that little wing that's being used for the desk for the students to write on. Generally, this would be called butaca escolar, or kind of a school armchair, but it's talking about that kind of desk there. Of course, we've also got that interesting word zurdos, which means left-handed or left-handed people. But again, I love this one just because it references one of my favorite movies. Alright guys, well that's everything I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching, I greatly appreciate it. If you feel like today's video was worth your time, please do me a solid and drop a like on this video. For you, it's just one little click, but for me and the YouTube algorithm, it means a lot. This channel is still growing, it's barely getting started. I've got so much planned for you guys. And I just hope that you can be a part of it going forward. Thank you again for joining me today. And thank you so much for watching through to the very end. Hope to see you again soon. Hasta la próxima.